In times past, humans and demons battled, and the heroes subjugated the Demon King. However, the world has become peaceful and entered an era where dungeon raids could be watched on a couch with popcorn. Adventurers and monsters use magical clones to fight in dungeon raids where nobody dies, and video footage of the raids is streamed across the continent. One day, while a hero party's raid is broadcasted from the 4th floor of the Demon Castle, the hero of the party, named Phoenix, takes out several monsters, while Alvar, another member of the party, battles the demons, but his skill lags. Luckily, he gets covered by Luck, another member of the hero's party known as the Holy Knight. Meanwhile, our protagonist, Rem, stands imagining what the commentary is probably saying about his comrade. Suddenly, the floor boss shows up and Lily, the only girl in the party, prepares to take it on, but Phoenix asks her to handle the vanguard instead. Just then, Lily steps up and launches an attack which takes out multiple werewolves at the same time. After most of them were taken out, Phoenix faces off with the werewolf boss. Meanwhile, Alvar calls Rem a deadweight for just standing and doing nothing. In addition, he asks if Rem's black magic specializes in uselessly filling space. However, Rem stares back, ignoring his comments. With most of the werewolves annihilated, Phoenix approaches the floor boss and the duel begins. Just then, the beast charges toward Phoenix, who then gets into a defensive stance. Suddenly, the werewolf leader tries to land a hit, but Phoenix blocks this attack with his sword. After repeatedly blocking the werewolf's attack, Phoenix decides to make a roast out of the floor boss, surprising the boss as he gets engulfed by the flames. While the beast writhes in agony, Phoenix slashes through the unburned part of the werewolf, and his party members watch in amusement. Afterward, the party enters a safe room, signifying the end of their raid. Just then, the commentators notice Rem hanging around like an NPC and point out that he's as good as a flint in hell to the team despite being in a position naturally suited for support. Although Rem reduces every enemy's magic, physical offensive power, mental faculty, and even their vision, it is never mentioned in the live stream. So, Rem wonders what it's like on the 5th floor, since the Demon Castle is legendary among all the other dungeons, and not a single party that confronted the Demon King in the deepest part of the Demon King Castle has lived to tell the tale. Phoenix's party ranks 4th among the tens of thousands of formal parties that exist, so after the raid, Rem's comrades decide to treat themselves to some drinks. Their formal party consists of 5 people including Phoenix, the hero of flames, so the people put their hopes in him to end the legend of the impregnable Demon King Castle. Also, Phoenix is Rem's childhood friend, so he asks Rem if they should head back. At that moment, Rem wonders why a hero like Phoenix got stuck with a cyberbullying punching bag like himself. Afterward, at some bar in the city, Rem is stunned when Alvar suddenly points out that he's deadweight. Since they had no objections, Luck and Lily pretend they didn't hear him say that. Since Rem couldn't find an appropriate response, he focused on nothing in particular. Alvar then slams his cup on the table and asks the others if he's wrong. Just then, Phoenix calls Alvar to order, but he retorts, telling Phoenix not to stick up for the joke he calls a best friend. Just then, Alvar states that every member of their party joined the party by proving they could swing if things went south. Unlike Rem, who is just a waste of space and made it on the team simply because he's Phoenix's childhood friend. After making Rem realize no one in their right senses would include some boring black mage in their party, Rem laughs to ease the awkwardness. This provokes Alvar as he slams his cup on the table and says it's not funny. He then tells Rem to stop leeching off Phoenix. At this point, Phoenix calls out Alvar and tells him to apologize to Rem for disrespecting him. He then points out that Rem is not as powerless as he claims, but Alvar disagrees, so he asks the rest of the party for their opinions while stating that they're not obligated to babysit a grown man like Rem. Still dumbstruck by the verbal violations he just experienced, Rem stares at Luck, hoping he'll remain mute as usual. However, Luck says he doesn't mind whether Rem's with the party or not. After this, Luck adds that they would have an easier time if they could get someone who's active. Lily then scolds Alvar for his vulgar way of speaking. In his defense, Alvar says he wasn't raised right and asks Lily what she thinks about Rem. In response, Lily says she doesn't believe Phoenix used his personal feelings to justify adding a member who lacks physical strength. She then adds that although the effects of black magic are not apparent, the party's style is progressing through the raids quickly with high attack power. Because of this, Lily says she'd prefer more direct firepower. Phoenix then tries to intervene, but Alvar interrupts and wraps his arm around Rem, saying that he doesn't hate him. At this point, Alvar asks Rem to try casting his black magic on him, so they'll all see it works. He then offers to apologize to Rem's heart's content if his magic actually serves a use. Meanwhile, Rem flashes back to his early days in training when his master decides to make him an apprentice and ditch his skinny rump if he whines once. He had told Phoenix about it and asked him to keep his master's identity a secret. While Rem reminisces about the good old days, Phoenix slams his fist into the table and says he won't forgive Alvar if he goes any further. At that point, Rem announces that he'll quit, surprising Phoenix. Meanwhile, Alvar gets excited about this and throws his arms around Rem again. He then commends Rem for reading between the lines. After this, Alvar goes on to say it's clear that Rem is just a coward, and having him in their party is the purest form of comedy ever made. Alvar then announces to everyone in the bar that Rem's quitting and asks for suggestions on a suitable replacement. Having been through the humiliation too many times, Rem chalks his life problem down to being a black mage since weak adventurers can't raid dungeons and unattractive adventurers get 0 likes on the gram. Such adventurers get dragged constantly on X and get no mercy from fellow adventurers and comrades either. Just then, Rem thinks about his childhood dreams and bows in disappointment when he figures his Hollywood dreams are now pipe dreams, so he decides to leave since he can't make a difference with the other people and the duty he's been given. However, on his way out, Phoenix goes after him, trying to convince him to stay, but Rem's mind is made up, so he decides he has no choice but to change himself. While the other party members watch, Rem vows to surpass his ex-comrades by joining a different party. Surprised by this, Phoenix reminds him that no single party would want him, but from that point, Rem decides they're no longer friends but rivals. Shortly after the train wreck at the bar, Rem sighs and wonders why everyone seems to have the same complaint about him. When he figures he'll have to cope with whatever life throws his way, he thinks he might have been able to stay if his ex-comrades knew his true strength. However, revealing this will definitely expose his master's identity. Furthermore, Rem recalls that Phoenix has always kept the promise he made to him when they were young, but whenever he covers for Rem, he feels like the party members' trust in Phoenix wavers. After this, reality hits Rem, and he realizes he was bluffing when he spoke of joining a different party, since only heroes make parties. He was just a +1 on Phoenix's party for some reason, but no one would recruit someone like him who got kicked out of Phoenix's party. While he gets drowned in the mess surrounding his life at that moment, Rem's attention gets drawn to an angry voice. When he looks, he spots a young girl apologizing to someone who calls her a spoiled brat. While he watches, the angry customer insinuates that no one would buy what she sells, and the stallkeeper tells her they have to apologize. On looking closer, Rem discovers Cashew is a child and also a demi-human, so Cashew weeps, but the shopkeeper consoles her by saying she needs to do her best the next day since it's normal to get all sorts of customers once it's late at night. Just then, Rem calls their attention to ask if they are still open and also says he's feeling hungry. Hearing this, Cashew wipes her tears and welcomes him, delighted to finally get a customer. So, Rem commends Cashew for helping out at the store and asks her to recommend one of her fruits to him. Since she isn't sure what his reaction would be, she merely stares at the fruit. Rem then offers to take one, while she thanks him. However, when Rem makes his pick, Cashew says it might be a little misshapen, but it has a clean color and must be delicious. After this, she explains that no one wants to buy her fruits despite her efforts to convince them that it's delicious. Since Rem stares at the fruit like there's a grenade hidden in it, Cashew pitifully says he can return it if he doesn't want it either. However, Rem senses a form of kinship with the fruit no one wants and takes a bite. After this, he suddenly lights up and says it's delicious. Surprised, Cashew asks if he's telling the truth and Rem confirms it. He then commends her for being able to look not only on the outside, but on the inside as well. So, Rem asks if he can come again since he'd like to get all sorts of recommendations from her. Dumbfounded by this, Cashew tears up from the excitement and thanks him. After Blitz congratulates Cashew on getting her first customer, he thanks Rem for his patronage, but Rem apologizes for bothering them at night. Cashew then hides behind Blitz, and he says she's just feeling embarrassed, so Rem bids them farewell and takes his leave. As he leaves, Cashew calls out to him and introduces herself. In response, Rem introduces himself, and she says she'll be awaiting his return regardless of how long it takes. Hearing this, Rem waves and realizes even someone like himself wants to be needed by somebody. After flashing back to Alvar's repulsive face, Rem gets inspired by Cashew's efforts and decides to do his best. However, he soon figures it's going to be a long and bumpy ride since his master had once told him nobody would recognize his value if he failed to reach the summit. So he stares at the sky and wonders if someone who needs him truly exists somewhere. Meanwhile, somewhere in the Demon Lord's castle, some hot chick sits fixated on a tablet and zooms to get a better view of the black mage named Rem. Sometime later, Rem thinks of how long it has been since he's been a job hunter. He then recalls the responses he got when he pitched himself to some potential team members. However, they keep reminding him why no one wants a deadbeat loser on their team. After getting multiple rejections, Rem crumbles to the floor, feeling defeated. So, he recalls his vow to surpass his ex-comrades as rivals and feels miserable. The thought of returning home then crosses his mind, but he figures that's impossible since he burned many bridges to become an adventurer. Feeling desperate, Rem decided to use the matching services provided by the Adventurers Association despite its hurting service fee. However, to his dismay, there are no job matches for him, so he freezes from shock. However, he decided to get something to eat first. Shortly after this, Rem arrives at Cashu's shop and Blitz asks if it's hard being a black mage. In response, Rem says there are no recruitments going on for black mages in the city. So Blitz asks if black magic is all he can use and Rem says he can do other things, but the Adventurers Association only permits jobs people have aptitudes for. Just then, Cashew chips in that black mages are super cool too. So Rem thanks her and expresses his happiness hearing her say that. Rem has become a regular at the store, so he figures Cashew is just 8 and trying to help out with her family's finances. Being her first customer, Rem visits the store often because Cashew inspires him. Blitz then reveals he always wanted to be a tailor, but he was no match for those with a job, no matter how much he practiced. In their country, people find out what job they're suited for in a temple where it descends on them like a prophecy. And whether it's jobs relating to adventurers or ones rooted in living, the people have no choice. It is considered a gift from the gods, so Rem thinks it'd be a blessing if someone gets granted what they desire and a test for those who don't. In Rem's case, he has always dreamt of becoming the hero, but almost ends up in a loony bin when he becomes a dark mage. So, Rem points out that they can only press on with whatever they can do. After this, Blitz offers to make him Cashew's assistant if his pipe dreams don't eventually pan out. Just when Rem thanks him, they are interrupted by some noise nearby. Rem then sees a thief snatch a bag from some lady and pull out a knife to scare away wannabe heroes. Suddenly, the thief makes away with the bag and Rem senses the thief is headed in his direction, so he asks Blitz to stand in the thief's way. Surprised, Blitz asks if he's going to do something and Rem confirms that it'll only be supportive, but he will not be harmed. Suddenly, Blitz gets in the way of the absconding thief and asks Rem to watch over Cashew. So Rem grabs Cashew and tells her to hide. After this, Rem concentrates and figures magic is permitted within the scope of daily living, but he'll get put under surveillance if he goes overboard. So while he tries to figure out what to do, the thief asks if Blitz has a death wish. However, Rem does his thing and captures his target with a spell. While the bystanders watch expecting Blitz to be gutted by the thief, the spell wakes effect and the thief wonders why his body suddenly gets heavy. In addition to this, he lost his vision and found it difficult to breathe. Just then, he realizes he's screwed, so Blitz makes up his face with multiple punches and disarms him before showing him the skies with an uppercut. Excited, Blitz rejoices for taking down a villain for once in his boring life. Meanwhile, Rem is relieved to see his idea go well, so he gives the credit to Blitz. Just then, Cashew gets out of her hiding place and peeks to see what's going on. Just then, Rem freaks her out by whispering in her ears. At the same time, Blitz returns the stolen bag to its rightful owner. Just when he thinks of rizzing up the lady, Cashew shows up screaming about how cool he is. Hearing this, the lady figures her hero with an apron instead of a cape is just a shopkeeper, so she offers to buy some stuff from him, as a way of thanking him. Just then, the bystanders offer to buy too while commending him for saving the day. Meanwhile, Rem gets relieved knowing that what just happened will make the people want to give something in return. So he gives Rem a thumbs up, and he reciprocates the gesture. While Rem watches, some guys pick up the thief and assist him in his walk of shame. Meanwhile, Rem thinks he couldn't have easily pulled that off in front of a man armed with a knife. So he looks around and figures it's good that he could contribute to Blitz's store a little. Later, in the city, Rem stares at his hands and realizes he's still got it. Despite his involuntary retirement, he has kept up his training since that's the promise he originally made to his master. Even after his job was identified, Rem couldn't give up his ambition of becoming a hero, so he desperately tried his best before his master. Rem then flashes back to his training days in hell, when he'd been abandoned in the mountains with beasts, beaten to a pulp by his master, and told to climb back up after being pushed off cliffs. By constantly training with black magic cast on himself, Rem learned when his physical abilities deteriorate or when his vision gets deprived. He also made his body memorize fine adjustments, so as long as he doesn't get interrupted, he never fails at magic. However, Rem has been taking measures to prevent any pedestrians from knowing of his black magic use and to ensure no one knows he's the Black Mage formerly in World Rank 4. While Rem wallows in self-pity, some lady passes by him and says she's been watching him. Surprised, Rem turns to see who it is and Mira calls his name. At this point, Rem can't believe someone of the dramatic gender actually notices him. So Mira compliments his flawless control of magic and his ability to optimize and unleash several kinds of black magic in a few seconds. After this, Mira says she's a huge fan, shocking Rem, who wonders if it's a prank. He then thinks he could believe it if it was someone like Phoenix. While Rem buffers in silence, Mira says she never imagined she would get to witness Rem's magic, so she unintentionally slowed down as she was chasing him. Mira then grabs his hands and says she thinks Phoenix's party was foolish for expelling him. However, Rem ponders if he'd survive in such close proximity to a pretty lady. However, as soon as he takes his eyes off her chest, he spots her lips and can't get his voice box to work. In addition, Mira then says he's a kind man and he hasn't changed since they last met. Surprised, Rem asks if they've met before and thinks she doesn't look like an adventurer since there aren't any demihumans among them apart from elves. While he tries to figure out where they met, Mira introduces herself and offers to treat him to tea as an apology for her rudeness. Before Rem can refuse, Mira states that she knows it's an abrupt invitation, but she may never get to meet one of the world's rank 4 adventurers. So Mira says she'll prepare a location if he's fine with it. Confused about what to do, Rem stares blankly as your exam sheet does at your teacher. After this, he takes up the offer and wonders if there's any dude who could refuse such an offer. So while they walk together, other guys drool and Rem figures it's because Mira stands out in the crowd since she's a beaut, unlike a walking eyesore like himself. Just then, Mira points out that he is the ultimate black mage, surprising Rem, who then freezes and tries to debunk this. However, Mira tells him to quit being modest since he's the only black mage in one of the top 10 parties out of the 3 which exist among the top 100. She then explains that even though the black mage isn't as showy as the other jobs in the adventure industry, Rem is the only reason why Phoenix's party managed to achieve such results. When she comments on Rem's accurate magic control and his knowledge of every little detail about the effects of his black magic, Rem gets gobsmacked. After this, Mira points out that he must have put in incredible effort that is unimaginable to ordinary people. At that moment, all Rem could think of were the comments of his ex-comrades the day he resigned from his job. So he says it's the first time he's heard such words since he became an adventurer. However, Rem wonders if she's truly a fan if she knows this much about him. Just then, Mira says that Phoenix's one-blow takedown of the floor boss was mainly because Rem's powers weakened all of the enemies and called them imbeciles for treating a high-ranking black mage like dung. After realizing how she sounds, Mira apologizes and excuses herself by saying it's something a friend of hers said. So, Rem asks if she could express his gratitude to her friend for showing such appreciation. Mira then agrees and states that it's already being conveyed to her. Suddenly, Mira halts and apologizes to Rem for keeping him waiting. She then insinuates that they are headed to the Demon King's castle. Shocked from recognizing the castle, Rem stares at Mira and asks who she is. Mira then takes off her hat and responds by saying they've been aware of his true strength since long ago. After revealing that his true strength has been confirmed, Mira says that Rem deserves respect and a fitting position. So she pleads with him to lend her his strength by any means. When they arrive at the Demon King's castle, Mira addresses the ruler of the demons and announces that she has brought the black mage named Rem. After a moment of silence, the Demon King refers to her as Camilla, which sounds familiar to Rem. Hearing this, it occurs to him that she's the third floor boss in the Demon King's castle who manipulates magic to attract and makes it appear as though the blood of her enemies is sucked out by the subordinate bats she sends out. In addition, Camilla is cruel and can't resist tormenting people for fun. But Mira seems like she can't hurt a fly. After this, the Demon King asks if it's really Rem. When Rem confirms this, he figures the Demon King's castle is a dungeon with 10 floors, and the ruler of the demons shows himself in the deepest point. And since no one has ever gotten to that point, Rem realizes he'll be the first adventurer to ever set eyes on the leader of the current Demon King's castle. So while the ruler of the demons speaks, Rem wonders why her voice sounds childish. Just then, she introduces herself as Lucy, surprising Rem, who stares like he'd just seen a ghost. Lucy then asks if something is wrong, but Rem responds by saying she looks far younger than he had imagined. Hearing this, Lucy asks if he's saying she doesn't look like the ruler of demons, but Rem quickly says he dares not have any comment. Impressed, Lucy says she would have had him kicked out if he were the typical rude person, but since he's different, she decides to get to the main issue. Suddenly, Lucy stretches her hand and appoints Rem as staff officer of the Demon King's castle. Shocked, Rem realizes he's about to be made the number 2 of the Demon King's army and wonders if that role is suitable for a human to take. Lucy senses his surprise and then asks Mira if she told him about the appointment. In response, Mira apologizes and says she thinks bringing him to the castle first would expedite things more than explaining. Just then, Lucy frowns and insults Rem for following Mira like a sheep being led to a slaughterhouse. In addition, Lucy asks if he was thinking of getting a sloppy toppy from Mira just because she claims to be a fan. Shocked by this, Rem says he had no plans to do that, so Lucy asks if he wouldn't like to juggle Mira's oranges. After asking if his cannon still has any shots in it, Lucy angrily slams her fist into the armrest and tries to hype Mira's bouncy bubbles. Mira interrupts her and feels awkward. Just then, Lucy gets a hold of herself and clears her throat. So she points out that their discussion had wandered off course, while Rem thinks she's solely responsible for that. So Lucy explains that it was Mira's wish to make him the staff officer, surprising Rem. After a moment of silence, Lucy says she wouldn't have noticed if she hadn't looked at him closely, so she asks Rem about the demon ruler who trained him. Surprised, Rem wonders what that means and recalls what his master looks like. So Lucy points out that there is no way he could achieve his current state on his own since he's on par with a black mage who has strictly devoted himself for hundreds of years, or even more. She then adds that even though he hides it well, his abilities exceed those of human beings. So she tells Rem to answer her question, but he can't get his words out. So Lucy says she understands his silence and explains that black magics were originally degraded incantations called black arts. But a long time ago, the ruler of the demons at the time forced mankind to the depths of terror, and for the longest time, he differed from the hero, the ally of the people, and was placed under a different degree of caution by the country. Just then, Lucy asks if Rem could tell that things would be problematic if he gets discovered. She then points out that he's an admirable pupil who is thoughtful of his master. After this, she then asks if Rem's master has the same horns as her. Since Rem can't answer any questions about his master, Lucy explains that she has taken over the Demon King's castle as the current ruler of demons. She then asks about his opinion on a grandfather who left his granddaughter alone, just to retire. Surprised, Rem puts his mind to work and soon figures Lucy is his granddaughter. Meanwhile, Lucy wonders why her grandfather doesn't realize the merits of being the ruler of demons and abandon the throne. Lucy then tells Mira she's right since Rem is the real deal. In response, Mira says she never expected him to be that great after all, so Lucy announces that she was planning to test him, but she realizes there's no need for that. So he tells Rem to help her Demon King castle prosper greatly. However, Rem asks her to hold on a moment while he processes what's going on since a former adventurer like himself would now be joining the side that fights against the hero. Just then, Mira says he won't be forced, but announces she'd be most delighted to work together with him. Lucy then asks Rem why he chose to become an adventurer despite knowing that he's a black mage. In response, Rem says it's because he wanted to become a hero and apologizes for saying that in the demon's castle of all places. However, Lucy says she doesn't mind while Mira points out that it must be a story many human children have. Lucy then further asks why he wants to be a hero and Rem figures it's obviously because it's cool. To help his response, Mira asks if he wants to look heroic, defeating monsters on the other side of the screen. Just then Rem says he would and flashes back to his childhood days when he dreamed of showing off flashy swordsmanship and firing off flames or ice. He had dreams of living like a celebrity after intense battles in the dungeons, an idealized future that benefits him and is only filled with good things. So Mira asks Rem what he thinks a hero is. Since he looks dumbfounded, she explains that even though he is the ultimate black mage, that's not the only thing she respects about him. She then makes reference to how he captured the thief at the store and points out that he helps people without asking for anything in return. Mira then further explains that taking action for the sake of righteousness over honor is what should make one called a hero, since a job only indicates his aptitude and doesn't define everything about the person. Just then, Lucy asks if Rem still wants to become a hero, and if it's only possible as an adventurer. To drive her point home, Lucy explains that those who raid the dungeons are adventurers, and those who fight back are monsters. Although there are some elves, the adventurers are primarily human, since the monsters were originally a role shouldered by demi-humans. Since Rem never considered becoming a monster, he asks if anything will change if he becomes a monster. In response, Mira explains that, unlike adventurers, monsters constantly hide their true forms. She then states she doesn't know of Rem's circumstances, but can tell that he has no intention to reveal his powers. She then suggests that if he were to mask his true form by being a monster, he could manifest his powers to his heart's content, and no one in the Demon King castle would feel troubled by his true strength. Disturbed by the idea, Rem asks if he'll become a monster in the Demon King's army. However, Mira explains that since the effects of black magic are not fully understood by spectators, it will be different from powers that are visible. In addition, Mira says every monster that has fought him knows he's the reason for their defeat. She then moves closer to him and proposes that he'd become a promising existence more powerful than anyone in the world if he becomes their ally. After trying to convince Rem that the monsters don't want to be hunted down and could use a ray of hope, Rem says that he has never considered the monsters as being prey. Hearing this, Mira says she felt compelled to reach out to him because he's truly kind and powerful. So Mira pleads with him to become a hero for the demons. When Rem agrees to the proposition, Lucy appoints him as staff officer of the Demon King's castle, so Rem finally gets off the job hunt and assumes his duty at the Demon King's castle in the position of staff officer, and as a black mage. Right then and there he decides to be a hero who leads the monsters, even if it means continuing on a path that would force him to confront his friends. Despite thinking about Phoenix, Rem has no hesitations. Suddenly, Rem gets startled when he spots the empty chairs and senses a dark presence on them. So Lucy snaps her fingers and some guys appear on the chairs. She then introduces them as the 4 heavenly kings in the Demon King's castle. On the seats were Augurs and Furcus. Lucy then goes on to say that Mira is also one of the heavenly 4. Meanwhile, Rem wonders if they've been sitting there all along. So Lucy explains that she figures he'd be nervous with too many people around. She also explains that one of the heavenly 4 didn't show up, but they'll be helping him out as a fellow comrade. While Rem still wonders if the Houdini act was black magic, Lucy points out that the job would be a walk in the park for him. Just then, Rem figures it's a rather advanced form of black magic playing out before him. So Lucy says they'll talk about his duties in due time and assigns Mira as his assistant. Rem then says it's not cool to make one of the 4 heavenly kings his assistant. Just then, Lucy schools him on the chain of command and reveals he's ranked higher than the 4 heavenly kings. While Rem stares at Augurs and Furcus, Lucy reveals she's sure he could become the world's best floor boss, and the world rank 4 would be no match for him. However, Rem was more worried about the negative opinions toward him. Just then, Augurs walks toward him and apologizes for the late introduction. After introducing himself and congratulating Rem on his new appointment, Augurs says he hopes they get along. While they talk, Mira joins them and says she didn't notice Augurs was present. Suddenly, Augurs gets defensive and says he didn't cast any black magic on her. In response, Mira reminds him that he is skeptical about Rem's strength. Just then, Augurs says unlike her, he has not had direct contact with Rem's black magic. After this, he explains why he suspects that Mira's reports of Rem's ability are biased. However, Augurs attests to having heard reports from others about Rem's strength, which is far greater than the typical black mage. After this, he reveals that Mira has always been infatuated with Rem ever since he raided the Demon King's castle. When Rem asks if that's right, Mira accuses Augurs of being creepy for having such personal info. So Lucy says she shared their girls' talk with Augurs, triggering the demon side of Mira, who then scowls at Lucy and scares her to bits. Augurs then says he'll stand by Lucy's approval of Rem and also scolds Mira for scowling at the ruler of the demons. Meanwhile, Rem wonders why the demons are being courteous to a human who was kicked out of his party and just showed up among them. So Rem says it's an ultimate reward if the ruler of the demons scowls at them. But the reverse must never happen. Hearing this, Rem figures they must be good people since they pay respects to a young leader. However, Mira calls him a lolicon and advises him not to get arrested since a scandal will be worrisome. In his defense, Agur says he's a childish protector, and also adds that childish lives are the best, but he'll never touch them. Because of this, he asks Mira not to group him with low-lives who try to turn angels into outlets for their lust. In response, Mira accuses him of being a sucker for being stepped on and scolded. Facing Lucy, Mira asks her never to listen if he ever asks her to massage him in any weird areas. So Lucy says she would never answer such a criminal demand. Feeling embarrassed, Lucy makes a look that puts Agur's gear stick in drive, so he tells her to stop looking at him like that. However, he loses it and asks Lucy to stare at him harder, while Mira insinuates that he should be thrown in jail for saying that. After this, Mira explains to Rem that not all demons are cultured and unlike Agur's, she's a true fan. She then reveals that her room is covered all over with posters and candid photos of Rem that surface on the internet. Just then, Agurs points out that she is just a stalker disguised as a fan. Having had enough, Rem asks for more details about his duties, and they all apologize for constituting a nuisance when they should be talking business. Impressed by this, Lucy commends him and decides to name him Lungeton. Unsure what that means, Rem stares blankly, wondering if it's a demon vegetable. Eventually, he asks about the strange word and Lucy explains that it's customary for the current demon ruler to give newcomers dungeon names. She then adds that it's a fitting name for him since he'll be leading the monsters. After this, Rem thanks her while she gets pleased thinking no one could do better. When the raids were made into showbies, different systems were developed and installed to make sure no danger befell anyone. Also, laws and rules were established for them, so if the hero parties are beings of light expected to play heroes, then monsters are the opposite, expected to be defeated. Even if it's part of the setting, there are some who adapt the acting in dungeon raids to real life, and in order for the demihumans who act the role of the evil monsters to not be identifiable, they've begun dedicating outfits for dungeons and using stage names called dungeon names. Since it's human nature to want the heroes to win in the end, they might pick a fight with a completely innocent monster if their favorite adventurer loses a fight to a monster of the same kind. Shortly after, Rem and his new comrades sit together and stare at each other in an awkward silence. Just then, Rem's attention fixes on Furka's masked face, and he wonders about what's happening behind it. Just then, Mira says the child seems to be asleep, surprising Rem, who wonders why Mira calls him a child. After this, Rem thinks the heavenly four mages are totally different from what he imagined since one is sleeping and the other is AWOL. When Mira asks if Rem has any more questions, he tries to recall the points of their discussion and sums it all up. However, Lucy points out that he doesn't seem too intrigued about the name, so she decides he gets no objections since she's pleased with the name. For Rem's avatar, Mira suggests that wearing a mask would be a waste, but Lucy objects to this by saying Rem's face would come in handy in a horror movie. After a questioning call from Mira, Lucy says he could look attractive depending on the beholder and the angles. At that moment, Agur scolds Mira for threatening the ruler of demons and Rem says he hopes they can decide on an avatar for him. However, he states that he prefers subtle changes rather than a BBL in his belly and horns on a hairless head. Just then, he figures there have been cases where demi-human adventurers remove their ears or tails. He then flashes back to a time when Lily argued with Alvar, who was concerned there are viewers who only want to see humans battle. Rem and Phoenix had stood up for Lily back then, so he wonders why she couldn't do the same when Alvar picked on him. While he gets lost in thought, Mira asks if he's okay and he says he's fine. So Mira attempts to explain the staff officer's job to him, but Lucy interrupts by throwing a ring at Rem. When he catches it, Lucy says it's a gift. Curious, Rem asks what the ring is for and observes that it looks like it's made of animal bones. While he stares at it, Lucy explains that it's a magical tool that allows him to summon anyone he's made a contract with. Hearing this, Rem figures that, like Alvar's magical sword, magical tools are tools imbued with mysterious powers that were crafted by species that are now extinct. Meanwhile, Lucy explains how he can make a contract with anyone and also explains that it's a simplified summoning item. Rem then says that summoning is an incredible ability, but Lucy points out that it's limited to only 72 people, and with it, he can summon monsters to drive away the adventurers while he puts his black magic to good use. Just when Rem thinks he might become the slightest bit of hope for many species, Lucy announces that she'll be restricting his contract targets to her subordinates for the time being since he can only be able to manifest his true value by building rapport with others. After this, she says his first job is to get intimate with everyone. Meanwhile, Rem figures magical tools are basically valuable in their generation. So Lucy must have granted his such a precious thing, because he's the apprentice of the ruler of demons' grandfather. When Lucy says she's counting on him, Rem responds by thanking her and saying he'll treasure it. After this, Lucy announces that she'll be throwing a welcome party soon. So she calls on Avars, who then suggests that he handles the planning and gets to sit beside Lucy at the party. Unfortunately for him, Lucy refuses with a disgusted stare and says she doesn't feel safe around him. After trying to prove his innocence, Alvarez freaks out because of the look she gave him and thanks her for it, while Firkaz dozes the whole time. Afterward, Mira offers to escort Rem out, and as they walk together, she apologizes and says the registration card will be provided to him some other day. She then points out that he's witnessed many embarrassing parts of her that day, but Rem says he has never been as hyped as she does him, so he's truly pleased. Rem then thanks her for helping him recall the reason why he always wanted to be a hero, since he's been forgetting that lately. In response, Mira says she's glad he doesn't find her repulsive as a woman. Although Rem finds her strange, Mira asks if he's truly kind and also asks how much he'll permit her. Unsure what she means, Rem asks her to clarify. So Mira requests to be his first, surprising Rem, who then goes into a frenzy. So Mira apologizes for not being clear enough, explains that she's talking about the ring, and points out that it also records the order of contracts formed. Because of this, Mira says she'd like to be the very first monster on his order of contracts. Just then, Rem understands what she means, so Mira runs her mouth and gives him a million reasons why he should consider her request. After analyzing her personality and realizing he wouldn't be there if it weren't for Mira, Rem suddenly grabs her and asks if she'd be willing to be the first monster he makes a contract with. Mira then blushes and asks if he's sure. Just then, Rem takes his hands off her and apologizes. However, Mira says she brought up the suggestion and was prepared to be rejected, surprising Rem, who wonders why she thinks so highly of him. Just then, she says she really wants to suck it out of him. After realizing how downright freaky she sounds, Mira desperately tries to redeem herself before her crush. Since he's new to the world of culture, Rem wonders if she's referring to his blood because she's a vampire and wonders why she's misfiring at that time. So, Rem manages to bring back the conversation about the contract and says he's been thinking of asking her in the first place. Hearing this, Mira softens with emotions and asks if he really meant that. When Rem confirms this, Mira goes mute for a few seconds. So Rem recalls Lucy's instruction on how to use the ring, but before he could say anything, Mira asks him to hand it over. So she puts the ring on him, proposal style, and recites the vows of the contract. After this, she kisses the ring, shocking Rem, who then asks what she's up to. But he suddenly halts and starts to see her differently. While he gets the impression that she's his first contractee, Mira smacks her lips and laughs mysteriously while bragging about being his first. She then says she'll go anywhere he desires as long as he summons her. In response, Rem tells her to go easy on him with the teasing, but Mira says he's got enough mana to handle her. After laughing it off as a joke, Mira apologizes and says it must feel weird to be rizzed up by a girl he doesn't even know. In response, Rem says that's not true. So Mira asks if it's too early for them to meet in his room at night. However, before he could even process that, she says she's just kidding, so she offers a hand and says she hopes Rem takes good care of her from that moment on. In response, Rem shakes her hand and says he expects the same from her. After they get over with the formalities, Mira whispers in Rem's ears and says she wouldn't mind going to his room in the middle of the night if he summons her. While Rem grabs his ears like he's just heard an eerie lullaby, Mira walks away. So Rem tries to calm his nerves and convince himself that she's just a fan and he's not losing his singlehood badge to anyone just yet. After this, he stares at the ring and recalls his job, so he heads out to get to work as a staff officer. On his first day of work at the Demon Castle, Rem decides to go after visiting Cashew. So he recalls Lucy's first assignment for him as he walks the streets, wondering how achievable it is to get properly acquainted with everyone. However, since he has made the choice to become a hero for the monsters, he figures his fate is sealed. After all, if his dream can't be achieved in his former party, it can be achieved in the Demon King's castle. Shortly after this, Rem arrives at the store and finds Blitz working. After they exchange pleasantries, Rem greets Cashew, who is excited to see him. After this, Blitz and Rem compliment each other on who's the coolest. Just then, Rem requests that Blitz don't say too much about him to anyone else. Hearing this, Blitz says he saw that coming since he suddenly vanished after giving him all the credit for taking down the thief. He then reassures Rem that he and Cashew won't tell anyone. After this, Rem thanks Blitz for being considerate. However, Blitz insists that they should be thanking him because they sold out their merchandise the previous day. Just then, Blitz offers Rem his share of the profits as gratitude for helping them. Initially, Rem refuses to accept it, but Blitz insists, so he obliges. Seeing this, Cashew frantically searches through her stuff and pulls out a fruit. She then offers it to Rem as her token of gratitude. Rem then thanks him for it and says he's truly happy, so he decides to buy out the stock since he'd like to take some to his workplace. While Cashew excitedly goes to get his order, Blitz asks if Rem has found a new place to work. After cooking up some story, Blitz asks about the new party Rem joined so he can add it to his favorite and spectate at any time. However, Rem figures he'd better evade the question even though he's happy about the sentiment. So he explains that it's still temporary and he'll let him know once it's finalized. Just then, Cashew interrupts them and asks if Rem will be okay with her misshapen fruits. In response, Rem says it's not a problem since her fruits taste better than they look. Just when he prepares to leave, he hears an all too familiar voice ask if he needs help with the bag. Just then, he spots Mira behind him and loses his grip on his jaw. While Rem and Cashew stare at her with question marks written all over their faces, Mira suddenly freaks out thinking Rem is a kindred spirit with Agares after all. However, Rem suddenly debunks that idea and tells her not to misunderstand. Mira then says she's kidding and greets Cashew, who then responds and says she'll also grow big soon. While Rem hopes she's talking about her height, Mira asks if Cashew would like to come to work with her as a secretary. Shocked, Rem asks if the secretary is his and Mira clarifies this by saying she'll work as Rem's exclusive assistant. Just when Cashew gets impressed by the salary, Blitz congratulates her and points out that Rem's friend is beautiful. In response, Mira says Rem helped her once and they've been in a relationship since then. Hearing this, Rem's eyes widen as he wonders what she's talking about. So Blitz decides to trust her since she's Rem's friend. However, he asks if it's safe. Mira then reassures him that it is and suggests that Cashew consider it after speaking to Blitz and her family members. Just then, Cashew asks why she's being picked and Mira explains that she overheard her discussion with Rem the previous day. Hearing this, Rem realizes he's been under surveillance for a while. So Mira says that if Cashew works with them, she can ease the burden on her mother a bit more, and most importantly because Rem's new job is intense, he'll need a wonderful assistant. While Cashew gets excited by this, Blitz says he's got nothing to worry about, as long as she's working with Rem. Cashew then asks Rem if working with him would cause him any trouble. In response, Rem says he's always happy around Cashew, so he'd do a better job than usual with her around. However, Rem wonders if it's okay to bring Cashew to the Demon King's castle, although she'd be a secretary who will only do clerical work and won't be dispatched to defend. Just then, Rem senses Cashew's mood drop. He then tells her not to force herself if she's not interested. However, she suddenly lights up and says she wants to be Rem's secretary. Glad to know she'd get to earn more than the pocket change she gets, Blitz says he supports that and hands her over to Rem. Suddenly, Blitz packs some fruits for them to celebrate Rem and Cashew's new jobs. While Rem thanks him, Mira says she'll have a subordinate get the fruits later. In response, Blitz says he'll look after Rem's bag as well, while they go with Cashew to send her regards to her mom. After meeting Cashew's mom, they figure she's a single mother raising 4 children, which is why Cashew works to relieve her mother of the burden. Despite hearing the salary offered for Cashew's new job, her mother momentarily refuses to let Cashew go to work with them. However, she allowed it in the end since Cashew forcefully demanded it. After this, Cashew's mother says she's heard about him being Cashew's first customer, surprising Rem. She then says Cashew may be inexperienced, but hopes Rem takes good care of her. In response, Rem says he'll take care of Cashew responsibly. Afterward, Cashew bids her mom farewell, and they leave. On their way, Rem asks Cashew why she isn't surprised that he's not an adventurer, but an employee at the Demon King's castle. However, Cashew says she's not bothered since he achieved great heights by being their staff officer. As they continue on the path and Cashew gets excited, Mira asks if Rem is worried. In response, Rem asks about when she started listening to his conversation with Cashew. Mira then reveals she's been listening from the beginning. So Rem asks if she invited Cashew because she's his friend and Mira says it is one factor, but mostly because he needs an assistant. In addition, Mira says it's unfortunate that she cannot serve as his helper all the time. Rem then points out that Cashew is still a child. Suddenly, Mira grabs his shoulder and makes Rem realize he needs a sympathizer. Surprised by this, Rem wonders what she means and Mira explains that Rem grasps his own true strength, but expects too little from others. So she decides that she and Cashew will admire him from that moment on, since only they know that his heart and magic are both extremely powerful. After Mira makes Rem realize that he's amazing and should never be underappreciated, Rem stares at her dumbfounded and eventually thanks her. Afterward, Mira explains that monsters are fundamentally controlled by the floor bosses, and even though he forms contracts with monsters, he must receive permission from their bosses in order to gain comrades. She then offers her piggies for him to use as he wishes. After this, Mira suggests that they gather comrades who truly understand Rem like her and Cashew. When Rem thinks about the idea of building a circle of trust, he recalls that he used to be the center of attraction among kids in the village. However, that changed when their jobs were established and everyone left him because they thought he didn't have a future and because he'd never become a hero. Back then, only Phoenix stayed and encouraged him by saying they could become the ultimate heroes. So Rem speaks to Phoenix in his mind and informs him that he has new comrades, and because he works in the Demon King's castle, their paths have diverged. He then decides to face Phoenix with all his might and gather ultimate comrades who trust one another. In the Demon King's castle, there is a reception desk in the front lobby for the challengers, and there are many facilities underground, starting with the dungeons, a public bath for the personnel, and also a cafeteria smithy. Among the whole facilities, Mira takes Rem to a playing field to gather comrades. As they walk along a corridor, she explains to Rem that he'll be meeting a band of werewolves since they plan to gather good-natured people. So she decides they could start with Marchosias, the floor boss. Just then she gives him a heads up that he can be overzealous. Just then, Rem recalls that Marchosias is the werewolf they fought the other day and wonders if he would accept a former adventurer like him. While he talks with Mira, Rem thinks she might have thought Marchosias wouldn't pose much resistance to him since werewolves use their human and half-werewolf forms for different purposes. Because of this, Rem decides to make a good first impression in order to seal the contract. Shortly after this, they arrive at a portal which Mira says is similar to the raid logging stone. She then announces that she'll be going ahead and instructs them to select the second playing field after her. Suddenly, Mira warps into the portal, amusing Cashew, who then exclaims. Just then, Rem and Cashew decide to go too, so Rem lets Cashew use the mechanism while he watches. When they arrive on the other side, Cashew exclaims in surprise at how big the playing field is. Just then they spot Mira as well as an army of werewolves doing drills around the playing field with their boss running the drills. The boss then encourages his subordinates by saying they'll be fine even in the face of speed-reducing black magic if they double their natural speed. Just then, the boss spots Mira and walks and approaches her. Meanwhile, Rem stares like a haunted statue and marvels at the incredible force that stands before him. The alpha werewolf named Marchosias then stares Rem in the eye and says he never imagined he could join their army. After expressing how pleased he is to have him around, Rem introduces himself, and since he can tell that Rem isn't used to his new name, Marchosias tells him he'll get used to it soon enough. After this, Marchosias adds that he hopes they get along well, while Rem figures he's welcome. While Marchosias picks Cashew up and plays with her, Rem realizes the floor boss is a kind-natured and friendly fellow. After this, Marchosias drops Cashew and says he suffered utter defeat the last time they faced off in battle. However, Rem says he and his followers were strong. So Marchosias asks about Phoenix's powers and asks why Rem released his black magic the moment Phoenix went up against him. When Rem couldn't figure out an answer, Marchosias laughs in a way that startles Cashew. Suddenly, Marchosias gets wrapped in a fog, and he reveals that he heard Rem was gathering 72 comrades. He then offers to join up and asks if Rem plans to fend off the Hero of Flames party. While he transforms into a man in the fog, Marchosias expresses his wishes to challenge Phoenix's party again. Just then, Marchosias' human form walks out of the fog, asking if Rem would like to make a contract with him. Surprised, Rem smiles and says he hopes they get along well. So they shake hands and Marchosias declare that they're brothers from that moment on. He then thanks Mira for linking them up, but Mira thinks he deserves her thanks more. Marchosias then swears to always answer Rem's summons and lend him his assistance at all times. Pointing to other werewolves around them, Marchosias says that Rem can make use of his brothers regardless of what floor he's assigned to. So Rem thanks him for the offer. Afterward, Rem thinks he might be stationed on the 10th floor, which is the final stronghold before the 11th, which is occupied by the ruler of demons. Assured that Phoenix will get to his floor, Rem decides to assemble comrades and prepare countermeasures. Marchosias then informs Rem that the Hero of Flames party will raid the 5th floor in 2 days' time. In response, Rem suggests that they observe their actions carefully since they'll have a new member with them. He then adds that he'll be there to analyze the battles in the control room. Excited about this, Marchosias says it might be scary to be Rem's enemy, but it's quite reassuring to be his comrade. So he tells Rem and Cashew to come by whenever they wish. 2 days later, an announcement was made that Phoenix's party has gone to raid the Demon King Castle's 5th floor, and the crowd vibes in excitement. As they wait in anticipation, Phoenix and his party prepare for the raid and walk into a room full of pretty sheiks. Seeing this, Alvar freaks out, while Phoenix wonders what's happening. Meanwhile, in the control room, Rem tries to figure out how to control the gadget. On the day when he met Marchosias, he had made acquaintance with many other monsters and several of them formed contracts with him. Primarily, the 1st floor boss Nabarius, known as the Watchdog of Hell, and their subordinate Glacia Labolas known as the Invisible Slaughterer. Also the 2nd floor boss Kimaris, also known as Great Spirit Commander, and their aide Lairage, the Hunter of Dark Wounds. Having established that they're all superior and reliable comrades, Rem prepares to find out how the new Phoenix party fights. Meanwhile, the Phoenix's party marvels at the sight of the pretty chicks in the dungeon and wonders what they are up to. Just then they wonder if they stepped onto the right floor of the Demon King's castle. While they look around, waiting for some drama to unfold, Phoenix feels strange, but Alvar gets lost in the eyes of one of the chicks. The lady then grabs Alvar and asks if she could touch his magical word. Like a love-struck idiot, Alvar obliges as the ladies lure him away, surprising Phoenix. Suddenly, Phoenix snaps out of it and looks closer at the ladies. Then it occurs to him that they were under the attack of the succubi charm. So he orders his comrades to get a hold of themselves. Unfortunately, Luck was hoping what was going on was permitted on TV and Lily is asleep, while Alvar drops his magical sword and freely presents his magic wand to be milked dry by the evil angels. When Phoenix discovers that Succubu's ability is draining and stealing their mana, he figures, unlike his comrades, that only he can resist it because he's a hero. While the evil angels feast on Alvar, Bella calls Phoenix and asks him to let her handle the situation, since it's her chance to show her abilities as the newcomer. Before Phoenix can call her back, Bella pulls out her sword and sends the dungeon back to Iceage, preserving the pretty minions in ice pillars. Suddenly, Alvar and Lily are freed from their slumber. While Phoenix marvels at her ability, Bella reveals that she reduced the magical power put into each of them. She then asks Alvar if he's alright while Lily apologizes to everyone for being pathetic. Just then, Alvar says he feels like he had a hangover and Phoenix says it's a nightmare and he'll have to edit everything apart from Bella's performance. At this point, it occurs to Phoenix's party that they are up against a different set of monsters which are unpredictable and are at their full potential. Phoenix then points out that everyone apart from him could have been drained without a white mage. Because of this, he decides that he and Bella lead the path. However, Bella decides to go first and have Phoenix instruct her. So they proceed with Bella in front while Phoenix figures she has a quite strong hero quality even though she's young. As they move amidst the frozen demons, one of the blocks cracks, but Bella fails to observe this since she's concentrated on the door ahead. Suddenly, one of the succubus jailbreaks and rips out her heart. Bella then collapses and Phoenix catches her while she points in a direction as she disappears. On looking, Phoenix and the others discover she's pointing to a door with a crest. Lily then says that the crest means it's a door to a safe room. However, Phoenix wonders why it's close to the entrance and announces that it must mean they'll be having a sudden floor boss battle right after entering the 5th floor. Suddenly more of the frozen demons break out and school Phoenix's party on why they shouldn't be careless. So the hero's party gets ready for a while the demons charge towards them and attack. So, the hero's party puts up a fight and Phoenix announces that the demons have lost quite a lot of numbers because of Bella's ice pillars. While Alvar deals with the demons, Phoenix walks toward the floor boss and insinuates that it's too early for them to suddenly fight the floor boss. In response, Citri asks if he would have destroyed her in a single blow and insinuates that he would have used his flames if Bella hadn't gotten involved. When Phoenix says she would have been reduced to ashes from his attack, Citri calls him an ugly child. However, Phoenix states that a hero must be an attractive being. At this point, Citri says she despises him and Phoenix responds by saying he likes the fact that she's a superior monster, and because of this, he'll defeat her and progress forward. Just then, Citri introduces herself as the Demon of Love and restates that she despises him. After they get to business, Phoenix ends her and states that he and his party never fail in battle. Some days later, at a bar, Bella raises her glass to toast their victory, but the other party members aren't in the mood. However, when she refuses to put her glass down, Phoenix decides to indulge her. Seeing this, the others decided to join in too, so they ate and drank. After they had defeated Citri and conquered the 5th floor, the Phoenix party decided to take on the 6th floor as well. There they got attacked by sharks too fast for even Lily to get a read on them. The shark attacks made Alvar lose his balls and swing his sword just to keep them away from him. Meanwhile, Luck struggles to keep his defense up while wondering why each and every attack gets stronger. So Phoenix takes on multiple opponents like the boss that he is. Suddenly, he senses a fast and large movement nearby, so he looks up and calls on his comrades to take cover. However, it was too late, as the monstrously huge shark dived towards Luck with its jaws wide apart. Shocked, Phoenix called out to Luck, but he stood fixated on the spot and figured there was no escaping from it. So the shark had him for lunch, while his comrades screamed. Just then, Alvar notified Lily of an incoming attacker behind her, but it was too late. Phoenix then figures they were saved by Bella's participation, but the 6th floor raid goes out of hand since Luck gets devoured by Fornius, the sea monster, and Lily is forced to retreat. Even though what was left of the party managed to crush the floor boss called Vepar, it was evident that the 3 of them could not manage their powers as well as before. So while they drink at the bar, Alvar points out that their situation hasn't changed even though the weak link finally had the guts to quit. In response, Lily attempts to shut Alvar up, but he fires back and says she's too late if she still wants to side with Rem. He then berates Lily for keeping mute when Rem quits, even though she owes him. In response, Lily explains that she will never forget what Rem did for her, but even so, she cannot side with him to the point where she would lie. Just then, Luck asks Alvar why he's getting upset, and in response, Alvar calls Luck depressed and tells him to quit slacking off since he's been making mistakes all throughout the raids. Hearing this, Luck also fires back and says Alvar is the one who has been unstable with his prized magical sword. This pisses Alvar off as he attempts to make Luck regret his comment, but Bella pleads with them to stop fighting. Phoenix then explains that their new system isn't working, even though Bella has been doing excellent. He then adds that she will surely become a magnificent heroine soon. Just then, Alvar slams his cup into the table and insinuates that Rem might have cursed the party with his black magic out of spite. Hearing this, Phoenix gets furious and suddenly grabs Alvar by the collar. While Alvar cringes, expecting the blows to land, Phoenix screams at him, surprising the other party members. The ruckus at the bar draws attention while Phoenix points out that even though Alvar doesn't think highly of Rem and is relieved that he's gone, he's still his best friend and he wouldn't stand to watch his friend being ridiculed. After throwing Alvar back in his chair, Phoenix points out that he won't ask any of them to play nice since they're all the same, but he'll never forgive them for scorning a comrade. However, Luck protests by saying they want to become the best too, but they are stagnating because Rem clearly lacks ability. After this, Luck asks Phoenix how things would work if he puts his best friend before the party. Just then, Phoenix gives it some thought and figures his attitude is also a problem, so he thinks the 3 had no way of knowing how lucky they were to have Rem in the party. After this, Phoenix says he's been watching his comrades since the beginning and he also believes that Rem was necessary. However, he suggests that they speak of the future. Just then, Bella raises her hand and says she's got a proposal. Bella judges from their experiences on the 5th and 6th floors and concludes the party members had a lackluster performance. When she asks why they do, no one gives any answer, so Bella says she's not acquainted with Rem and guesses could be more powerful than they all thought. Shocked to hear this, the other members of the party stare at her in silence. So, Bella continues by saying she analyzed past videos and noticed that Alvar and Lily's accuracy has been waning and even Luck has experienced a harder time defending. Meanwhile, Phoenix wonders if Bella is noticing that the party's slump is due to the absence of Rem's magic. After considering her discovery, Phoenix figures Bella doesn't conform to common practices among adventurers. Just then, Lily asks if they should keep in mind that they no longer have the support of Rem's superior magic and Bella explains that she understands that it's difficult to accept. At that point, Alvar admits that things only got worse right after Rem quit. Just then, Phoenix says Rem is no longer with them, but he recognizes every one of their abilities, so he decides that they formulate a strategy based on Bella's proposal. Meanwhile, at the Demon King's castle, Citri weeps for losing to Phoenix and apologizes to Lucy. So Lucy consoles her with the fact that she took down one of the party members and went up against a hero. Meanwhile, Rem sits at the table with Cashew and Mira, so Lucy points out that Rem will be fighting his first battle the next day and asks about his ally gathering. In response, Rem thanks her for gathering people on his behalf. Lucy then announces that the people who are interested in him are gathered for his welcome party. During the private banquet held in the Demon King's army's favorite restaurant, there are tons of different species in attendance, so Rem figures it's an opportunity to get everyone to remember him this way rather than going around and greeting everyone formally. So he took Lucy's advice and decided to use the opportunity to get friendly with everyone in the Demon King's army. Just then, Rem overhears someone saying Phoenix is strange. Just then, Citri talks about his impressive qualities and how he hasn't forgotten to respect the demons. In response, Lucy also attests to this, while Rem drinks from his cup and convinces himself that he's not jealous to hear that. Although Phoenix wasn't always the strongest, Rem figured he might have to reconsider that thinking. During their duel, Phoenix had forced Citri out in a single blow and his party conquered the 5th floor in no time. While the meals are served, Rem realizes Phoenix is closing in on the 10th floor where he's waiting. Meanwhile, Cashew freaks out, feeling excited about the delicacy served before her. Just then, Mira calls Rem and tries to feed him with some food. However, Rem protests, saying he can eat by himself. Suddenly, Mira gives him the evil demon look and pulls an emotional blackmail, which makes Rem change his mind immediately. Hearing this, Mira lights up again and says she's happy to hear that. Seeing this, Cashew gets jealous and picks up her fork to compete with Mira, so she feeds Rem from some of her food too. Just then, they hear Agar screaming at Citri and trying to feed Lucy some pudding. However, Citri tells him he's annoying and offers to feed it to her instead. Just then, Agar says it's indecent for a subordinate who fails at their job to cling to their superiors. Citri then reports Agar's to Lucy and asks if it doesn't pull at her heartstrings. In response, Lucy says she doesn't think so. So Citri says it must still be too early for her to feel such. Meanwhile, Rem observes what's going on and figures Citri's still smiling, even though her failure is still weighing on her. Seeing his cultured plans with Lucy have been ruined by Citri, Agars calls her a succubus wretch, making Citri report him for bullying her. Just then, Lucy scolds Agars and reminds him to always address his comrades by their names. She then points across the table and adds that if he's going to scold Citri for indecency, he should take a look at Rem and the girls bent on filling him up with love and food. In response, Mira requests that nobody speak to her since she's having a good time. Hearing this, Citri points out that Mira has now become a simp just because of a boy. Citri then reminds Mira that they've been friends for much longer than she's known Rem and demands that she be kind to her too. Mira then says she's being kind because she treasures Citri immensely. Surprised to hear this, Citri asks if it's a joke and Mira openly declares her love for Citri and encourages her to keep being a good girl. While Citri gets excited about this, Rem figures the 4 heavenly kings are one way or another friendly and thinks Agar seems to have heard about Kasher from somewhere. Just then, Agar says it can't be that Rem is clapping his assistant and secretary. Afterward, he adds that there's no need to hide it if he was. At this time, Agars had formed a contract with Rem under some misunderstanding that they share some similarities. However, Rem had corrected him and would have prevented him from talking to Cashew. However, he let it fly since he must be sensible enough to make the right judgments if he's been appointed as one of the Heavenly Four. Afterward, Rem meets with Furkaz outside her armor and awakes while they talk. Rem figures her dungeon name is Furkaz, so he offers her a plate of food and she says he can provide her with a meal every time she helps him. That was the condition on which they formed a contract. As the evening goes on, Rem gets away from the crowd and finds Citri standing alone along a corridor. There she asks him if he can defeat Phoenix. In response, Rem says he can with the help of the demons. Skeptical about his response, Citri asks if he's sure. She then asks if he's really going to stop his best friend from achieving first place. Rem then says it's not relevant since it would be an insult to go easy on him, so he explains that they'll both be fighting with all of their might. After this, Citri requests that they talk some other time, and as she walks away, she turns to say she'll form a contract with him if she's satisfied. Later that evening, Rem returns to the guests and finds Cashew. He then says it's about time they headed home. After this, he asks if she had fun and Cashew says it was nice getting along with a lot of people. Just then, Lucy points out that Cashew is a promising secretary and asks if he managed to talk to everyone. Rem then responds by thanking her. So, Lucy says she looks forward to his first battle the next day and Rem promises to do his best. Shortly after, they leave the building and Rem carries Cashew on his back as they bade everyone goodnight. On their way home, Cashew says she'd like to become a monster in the future. When Rem asks if she's sure about that, she explains that she made the decision earlier in the day. So they walk along silently while Rem figures Cashew is currently 8 years old and he can't tell her it's too early to decide her future since she can only find out when she clocks 10. After this, Rem figures he's not in the position to advise her since he refused to stop aspiring to be a hero even after becoming a black mage, so he decides to support her for having a dream and pursuing it. Just then, Cashew says she's got a wish. When Rem asks her to share it, Cashew says when she grows up and has the ability to help Rem, she'd like to be the 72nd person on his list of contractees. Hearing this, Rem figures it's the exact opposite of Mira's request and smiles, saying it's wonderful. Just then, Cashew says she now has one more thing to look forward to in life, so she vows to do her best to form a contract with Rem. Just then, it occurs to Rem that the next day will really be his first battle. Who do you think would make it out in a one-on-one fight to death battle, Phoenix or Rem? To find out, comment "Demons are not so bad," leave a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video and subscribe to the channel for similar content. Thanks for watching.